Good evening, TNT family. We are fortunate again to have our uh, Dr. Stephen Rambrook, who is former CEO of the ODPM under the PPG government, and to have Dr. Rambrook back with us again as we retake government. We all are excited to hit the ground running, and we want to get the best advice on board, and definitely uh, Dr. Ramrook's contribution is very much important in my view and very much needed so that we can get some effective and efficient performance on the ground there. So, Dr. Stephen Ramrook, welcome back to UNC USA. I deeply appreciate you taking the time to join us here. So, Dr. Ramrook, we'd like to get a little feedback from you on the swearing of our new government today and our prime minister decision on the various ministers and assignments, and if you can give us a little narrative of your view of how things went today.
Well, first of all, I'm extremely happy. I am, I'm excited. It's after 10 years, pretty much of doing just my private practice in this country, coming out of ODPM. I just had, I couldn't get anywhere to assist the country in anything at all. Besides my little private practice. So I'm so happy. In fact, I texted the Honorable Minister of Energy, and I said before I even knew he was going to be appointed as energy, and I said, I can feel the energy in the room. I'm so excited, not knowing that he'll be appointed as Minister of Energy. It was very interesting.
I was surprised at that one.
Yeah, I was glued to the television. My colleague, Dr. Bodo, is now Minister of Health. I mean, I went. I mean, I was in medical school with Dr. Bodo. I remember studying in Port of Spain, and he was in the class above me. And when he left and he passed his exam, he passed on his notes to me, and he used to write so neat and I tell you, it was really neat handwriting. First time I saw like a guy would write so good notes. I mean, I think I still have that book somewhere where he gave me in Obs and Gynae, he gave me those notes. So, I mean, I'm so glad to see people I can actually pick up a phone and call and they will answer the phone. That is something I'm very happy about because sometimes, we might have ideas and, because of the circumstance, because of where they are and what lens they look through, you might say, well, although yours might be evidence-based and based on science and based on best practice, it might be hard to sell it because they have their own opinion and maybe the persons around them would give them some influence. So we have to be very careful sometimes when we go forward in terms of how we suggest or recommend things. But at least, what I would like is that, you have the freedom and the ability to do that. In the past 10 years, I wasn't even given the opportunity to even do that. So I think that, I'm happy. My neighbor, I know when she left to go up to Port of Spain, my daughter-in-law was upstairs and she said, uncle, she calls me uncle, hey, look, the boss is going, and so we knew that, she was leaving to go up to Port of Spain. So she's so close, as you know, she's my neighbor. And I've been very close with them from very long. So I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy that she proved a lot of people wrong. I mean, even myself, I had my doubts, after the last loss of election. I remember she coming up at the poolside here with us and spending Christmas and New Year's with us. And we said to ourselves, I don't know if she could go through that again. And she did. And she proved even myself wrong. So I'm proud of her. I'm proud of Greg, her husband, for sticking with her. I'm proud to be her neighbor. And I'm proud to be a Trinidadian right now because I do feel that there's some hope to improve the country. And there's always room for improvement, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, feeling the energy,
Yeah.
yeah, feeling the energy and the freedom and seeing the liberation of our people. It's
Yeah.
really nice to see. I'm feeling it all the way over here in the US.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, the country had a sort of, you could have felt the vibe. I was at a conference in the Hyatt in the last week because we had a Rotary district conference for all the countries in the Caribbean. I was doing the logistics. I mean, I don't know if you know that when the People's Partnership was in government, I was the person who was responsible for in ODPM to assist with all the transport and logistics for her Christmas children's treat that she used to have. So what we did at the conference, we had 400 and something people, and I was responsible for all the logistics of transport and the busing and all this sort of thing. So it reminded me of what I used to do when we came around to Christmas and we were asked to give toys to the whole nation, and that sort of feeling came back, to me when I looked at the rally in Aranguez, and I spoke to a lot of people at the Hyatt, and I spoke to people in my office. You could have felt the national wind of change, and people looked for that change. So that I think even the PNM supporters for the didn't come out and support the PNM. They stayed away, because, and I think that also helped a lot in in the UNC taking the realms of power for the next 5 years. So it worked out well, and I'm happy.
Yeah, we have a landslide victory, and I mean, the mood on the ground with our people. I mean, you're feeling relief, you're seeing the
Yeah,
joy of your people, and we finally have a prime minister who
yeah,
actually loves her people, who actually cares about people, and the people have realized how much they have lost by not she returning to office, in 2015, and there's so much damages. I mean, we have so much cleanup to do. I mean, I think the job is more hectic
yeah.
no than when we took in 2010. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, you could tell me better.
It's
And,
gonna be, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
and
gonna
we're
be,
going to need all the help. And I'm
yeah,
trying to pull all the backup that we can that will assist, in helping our government succeed. I mean, especially a person like yourself, very needed, much needed in the disaster management, area and dealing with these flooding issues because I am proposing that we hit the ground running with the agricultural industry and deal with the flooding so we can get a mass production of food while we work out the economic issues.
yeah. Well, I fully agree, and the fact that she has put the Home Affairs, ODPM, in the Home Affairs, the last 10 years, I think what the last government did is this, they sort of decentralized the governance of disaster preparedness, which is good. It's quite important for each. It's like a human being where each cell has to be resilient, huh? And that is how we survive. If something affects our fingers, the fingers and the cells of the hand has to have the ability to deal with it at that level and not involve the entire body. And that is how we have survived as a human species, right? But the need for our brain, right, is very important. And that is what we call the 24/7 central situational awareness. It's something that, although it affects the cell and the cell deals with it like a reflex, right, in the hand, the brain knows that it happens, watches it, and if it gets out of hand, the brain allows the hand to pull away from the fire. Now, what happened in the last government, I think they didn't push a lot of effort into the strengthening of the ODPM in terms of disasters. So what you had was, you had 14 municipalities, good, and Tobago, and they all had phone numbers for a person to call. So if somebody is in a problem between the boundaries of Naparima and Siparia, for example, they would know who to call because you have two numbers. So that is chaos. Over there you have a 911, and most of the parts of the world that I have been in developed countries, there's one emergency number. So that, for example, if you call that number 911 and it's a cat on the tree, immediately the dispatcher dispatches it to the fire. If it is you're in an accident on the highway, that dispatcher will dispatch the police and the fire and ambulance, right, without you having to call 911, 811, 511. So you see, the science there has been disrupted from when I left in ODPM, when I left there in 2017, when we were working towards having one number, you see, and then all of that just went through the door. And then you had decentralization, where you didn't have that brain control. So that if something happens at 2:30, like what happened once when we had Diwali, I don't know if you remember Diwali, we had a lots of flooding, and Diwali was a holiday. All the local government people were in their house lighting diyas and celebrating, right? And then you had this severe rain, and then you had flooding, which nearly killed quite a lot of people. Remember, we had a lot of floods. So what happened? You have to have that national command center, which sometimes we call a NOC, or National Operations Center, in which ODPM has a representation there. So that what happens when you hear that flooding happens 2:30 a.m. in the morning, you can mobilize armies, you can mobilize, gangs, you can mobilize assistance, and you can go to the areas where there is flooding. So all of these things with the decentralization, and the what we should say, authority of the ODPM, where they didn't have strength and power and law and legislation. I hope that this government now, well, our UNC government, now that they have put it into Home Affairs, that they can now strengthen the legislation behind ODPM, because you're going to have 24 named storms going to be happening in the hurricane season. 24. And those storms will bring flooding. And not even storms, we need to bring flooding in Trinidad. As you know, if you have heavy rains on weekends, we have flooding. So yes, this is something that I hope to see. When I left in 2017 and the government, PNM government took over, we were at the point of beginning to create the legislation that was the model legislation that was provided by CDMA for ODPM. And of course, it didn't get implemented. So I'm hoping that we are given a chance now in the next 5 years to implement that legislation, because we are going to have flooding.
Well, the rainy season is going to be soon up on us. And we know for a fact that we did not get the proper basic maintenance with the drains and the rivers and stuff like that. So I am very concerned about the farmers in particular. I know, citizens will be affected too, but especially the crops for these farmers has worked so hard we very much need it. And I encouraging our government, and I think they have heed to our voices, especially our honorable Prime Minister. She has listened carefully to what all of us had to say, and we are hoping that we create a mass production of food while we sort out those economic resources to drive our economy. With the energy, what to say, industry there, with the level of destruction we might be encountering because of the length of period of time that the refining was sitting duck. We have to clean out some rust and some gunk and flush it out and upgrade the technology and all these different things. So by the time we're working on getting our economy flowing with the other resources, we definitely have to deal with the flooding issues so that our farmers' produce can be protected, and we also need to implement, the security for the farmers, because they've been robbed left, right, and center. I mean, threatened and brutalized. No proper policing there for their for them, to respond to them. The PDL larceny is very short. I would say short change when it comes to equipment and manpower.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the normal police station should respond. Because they try to make it, well, that's this one job and it's not my job and I ain't coming. In the meantime, you could be sitting down doing nothing. So
Yeah.
I think we'd have to change. We have to do a lot of restructuring with the police and all of these things also.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I am just very concerned about what we up against as this administration takes government. So definitely, a person like yourself is very much needed.
Yeah. Well,
And
what we have to do is we definitely have to create legacy, right? We have to change the status quo. Now, a number of things happens in a government, and when the new government comes on, they change the thing. They change it right away, and that is what disturbs me, because I remember in ODPM we started working and engaging with quite a lot of the ministries. For example, we had recommended, and I remember in the days of Jack Warner when he was Minister of National Security, he did do justice. They need to create an interministerial committee, right? In the absence of having a statute for ODPM and disaster management, you need to create an interministerial committee, because like what you're talking about there, we have to have a number of things. One, like Ministry of Agriculture, right? That is very important, so that this boy would have some responsibility there, the Minister
Ravi
Ratiram.
Ratiram, yeah.
Right. Then you have the Senator Kennedy Swart saying he is in planning and development. And that is an extremely important ministry when it comes to looking at the areas, right? What they call them enumeration districts, right? Not electoral districts. These are enumeration districts, where the mapping of households in Trinidad and Tobago is based on EDs, where you know the number of persons, how many females, how many males, how many businesses, how many local dwellings, etc. You see? That needs to be mapped. And I see that there's a guy called Edward Moody. One of these days, you need to get him on the program. He's doing a lot of work in Woodland and all these areas in terms of the
Yeah, if you
environment.
could help us get in
Yeah, I could
contact
probably
with
get in
him.
contact with him. He seems to be on track with, a lot of work on the ground with respect to flooding and prevention of. And I think that what I'm talking about in planning and development, not just mapping the high risk areas so that you can mitigate some of the flooding problems, both structurally and non-structurally. I think what you also have to look at is what we call something called building codes. I remember that when we had when this Rudy Monilal was in housing in the PP government, we had started a meeting in which we had to look at the building codes, because zoning, and I remember Botiwari, when he was in planning and development, introduced some zoning, so that we have to start now putting agricultural land in places where you do not have that amount of high risk, so that you can prevent further problems, right, in terms of flooding. But at the same time, you need to address the current agricultural lands where you have high exposure, and start beginning to zone those areas. And also in terms of building codes, I mean, things like buildings and how people building flats in flooded living on river banks and all of these things, you have to start preventing it from getting worse and start addressing the ones that are there already. And finally, of course, as you can well imagine, how Ministry of Housing is very important to look at the building codes when it comes to more catastrophic events like earthquakes. And we overdue for an earthquake, for a very long time. So yes, that interministerial committee will deal with some of the issues that you mentioned, but it also will develop policy. It will probably develop some legislation, right? That if put in place, it will begin to create that sort of resiliency and sustainability that I think this 5-year term that UNC needs to now focus on, and not just when another government comes, and if they come, of course, hopefully not, but if they do, they don't come and change back everything that you have done. And this is something very important. You see it in the public service, Gary, a lot,
Well,
because
well,
yeah,
I'm hoping that we maintain ourselves to such a high standard, which I'm trying to help make sure our government does. But I hope the people doesn't make that same mistake and allow the oppressor to return. They must remember, because I know sometimes people memory is short. So we want to remember what this government did for the last 10 and the kind of level of sufferation. And I mean, it's plenty. I guess some people remember what Mrs. Caesar did under with her government and the kind of things they put in place. So some people realize quickly. And I believe we had a lot of support from the younger people who benefit from that laptop program where Mr. Suman Singh here with us tonight. It was very much involved in that out of Florida, who just joined us. But Dr. Ramrup, what I'm looking forward to is when we deal with all these mitigation uh, issues and implement things in place. I'm hoping that we do some infrastructural work alongside these areas where the river it flows heavily, that we build some kind of water how to say holding capacity,
all right. So I
like
tell you what,
dams,
yeah,
treatment center,
right,
facilities, so that
yeah,
we accompany these things in
yeah,
those vicinities, so there's an overflow and treatment, and all the water doesn't run out, and 6 months under the year people suffer with water, because
absolutely,
we let everything run in the sea. That's how we have it right now. So
absolutely,
beside the basic maintenance and cleaning, we have to come up with a strategic design so that we redirect this flow of water and then we into a holding and treatment area so that we can service the country. And we also have to come up with we should also work on where people can utilize the water, rainwater, and set up the treatment structure. Like they have these independent home system where you catch rainwater and treat it. You put a system in place where they can also do that. So
yeah,
multiple strategies to resolve this water issue. But they're definitely looking forward to some infrastructural work way alongside our rivers like Waraka River, Arupush River. Then it starts up from, I guess, Toko San Grande, where the water starts to flow downhill into the Caroni River.
yeah,
We need to start to contain the flow of that water where we control it,
yeah.
and restrain that water. So these are the kind of things I'm looking
Well,
forward to.
one of the things I would like to support and strengthen that is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? When I was the CEO of ODPM, we were invited by JICA, which is JICA. It's a funding agency from Japan, And they invited us to go and look at what they were doing with exactly with respect to that, because they have a lot of flooding in Japan. It's a small country, yeah? And they are highly densely populated, and they have a lot of heritage sites that were being destroyed. And they of course, as you know, these people, they one of the biggest things in their life is their heritage, right? Their temples and all of these things, right? Their shrines and whatnot. And what was happening? They were losing a lot with flooding. Why? Because they were having more housing, as you see in Trinidad, more development. So when we went there, we saw exactly what you are talking about, right? When you mitigate things like flooding, you do two things. One, either structural or non-structural. That's how it's defined in disaster risk reduction policy. Structural mitigation, non-structural. So the examples of what you are talking there, structural. You know what they did, and they're doing it in Guyana now, right now in Guyana. So what they're doing is that they're building these natural water courses alongside, artificial water courses, drains, then big drains, alongside the natural water courses. Because what happens now with all the new development, imagine a guy has a piece of land which is one lot, right? The building codes in Trinidad and Tobago currently says that you can't have more than 30 to 33% of that covered. Do you know that sometimes a whole property is covered by galvanized, right? And what happens is that all that water that catches on that falls on top goes into drains, so that the natural water courses are overwhelmed when there's periods of heavy rain. Now, due to climate change, the rain that we are seeing sometimes is as if somebody takes a bucket of water and just drops it, right? As different to rainfall, which is steady and continuous. You have this high density, high capacity water that just drops on you. So the type of rainfall is even different. So they build these artificial water courses. They have these, they have these little pumps that separate them, so you can control, right? And then on the natural water courses, what they do, they build these levees or dikes or high piece like elevations, and on it, you know what they do? They put these walking tracks and cycling tracks, with benches for retired people to go and look. They make it beautiful, so somebody can actually walk from La Romaine, right, Woodland, and they can ride a bike and go straight down to Mosquito Creek, right, along the banks of the natural watercourse. And there are these artificial watercourses that takes the house water, all the waters that are,
The overflow, the
that's
overflow. Yeah.
correct. And that is what we see. It's done. And when you go to the cities, you know what they're doing? All the businesses, right, have been given special grants by the government to replace their pavements, right? All the tennis courts, all the pavements, and all the parking lots. And under that, they're putting these small little square, like cubicle, like cubes, right, of a certain types of beads that collects the water, and then you pave it on top of that. So the water actually runs on the side, goes into these beads, and what it does, it keeps the water. And they use that water now, right, as a sort of cistern, right? And they pump and they flush their toilets with it, they wash their cars, they water their plants, so that when rain falls now, instead of the rain running into the streets of Port of Spain, the rain now can actually collect in these areas, like in front of Republic Car Park, in front of all Hyatt Car Park, and all of these car parks in Port of Spain, in the north part of the city, so that it starts to catch, and therefore not much water comes down, right, where the bus terminal is. So the thing is, right, there is already evidence, there is scientific evidence that there are things that could be implemented. We actually saw it. So we are hoping that I think, who is in public administration, I can't remember who is the minister, is going to be there now.
Mr. Smith.
Right. So the public administration has to come in here now. And so we went on this conference, we went on this training, we saw all of these things. We submitted the report to the ODPM through to the permanent secretary of the Ministry of National Security. Now, where did that go? Now, you see, this is the problem with this public administration. You have all of these technical experts who go and do all of these. The government spends money for them sometimes to go. They pay the tickets. They go to these conferences for years and years and years. And they come back with all the best practices. But now you file a report, right? And I mean, separating the ministry is a good thing, because it means the bureaucracy is going to be less, because you're dividing the Ministry of National Security. But ODPM now reported back to the permanent secretary and the deputy permanent secretary of the National Security Ministry. All those recommendations that we made at that time would not have been coming into a forum where they would say, okay, this is what we saw. So therefore, local government, cities, could you meet with your businesses? Could you meet with your private sector? Could you meet with your business sector? Dr. Ramrup and his team have, it's a Caribbean team. It wasn't just us, it was other people from the Caribbean. who were engineers and everything. We went and we saw it. These are the beads that you can buy so that in the future now, instead of paving your car parks with asphalt, yes, you have to do it, but you dig up the car park, you put that underneath, and then you pave on top with the asphalt, and the water collects on the side and runs into those beads. So you see, you now prevent that excessive water from coming down to the bottom part of the city and flooding. And just by doing that, you also make it a public-private sector participation and a cooperation, which is what the Japanese have been doing.
So
So
what you're saying is these beads is like
it's
if
like
you
a it's like a little square that goes on, like if you put in a tile, so that when you, let's say you dig up the car park in front of you now, you lay
uh,
down those like tiles, right? And
uh,
then on top of it, now you can actually put a sheet, like the plastic that they use when you're casting a house, and you
yeah.
put that sheet, and then on top of that you put your asphalt, right? Or
Right.
your
So what I was thinking about also, like when Suruj redid the Mayaro stretch there,
yeah,
Manzalina stretch, right?
yeah,
I was saying, if we can get like boulders and stone on before you put the asphalt, so the water seeps through and don't rip the road, and it has something to soak, and then you put the pitch on top of that, and then the asphalt. That was
right,
one of the suggestions. It was like an elevated
yeah,
sort of structure. I mean, in some places like if you go through Louisiana, you see these little raised roads where it is like
yeah,
a mini bridge, and you come through it so the water does not overflow the road. But they're
yes.
just kind of paving. It's like they're putting band-aids, and patching, and they're doing the same thing over and over again. And
Yeah.
it's,
What Manzanilla needs, and the same thing by the creek, is they require what we saw when we went again, right? We went to Singapore and other areas, right? Where
you would have to raise that road. You would have to raise the road
listen,
above,
it's called a causeway, and what it is that you actually go up, right, above the natural, and you
on a
create.
ramp, ramp style
That's
thing.
correct.
Yeah.
And you make it beautiful with lookouts, and people could go on top and take views and whatever, right? And you go
Something
above.
like the FDR in New York there.
Yeah, and between New York and New Jersey, right? They go over that entire swamp area with a massive causeway over the swamp, so that you don't interfere with flora, fauna, you don't affect the environment, and as a matter of fact, you need to have your water catchment areas to prevent flooding. So the creek didn't need a highway. What it needed was that causeway that went from like where the hotel is, right across to whereby Anand has this place, above that whole thing, so that the swamp and everything underneath, the crabs and everything can run, and your whole ecosystem remains the same. So that is just a waste of money, and Manzana has to be the same thing. So it's like this, Gary. Now that we have our team here, we hope that public administration can bring the ministries, because the best practices were there. We need somebody to listen to us, and hopefully maybe fora like these would help. For example, we advised when People's Partnership was there, right, that if you go to Miami Beach, you go to the French Riviera, you go to South Beach, and all of these beaches where you have a beach, right? Good, you remember know what I'm talking about, right?
And
You
you
have
have
a beach,
A1A, and you have A1A running along the
right?
beach.
So you have a beach, right? That's it, beach, right? Then you have the road, right? And then the other side, you have all the nice hotels and parking areas. It is only in our country that we have a beach when you have surge flooding, and on the beach you have bacon shark selling. You see, so this is you can't have that. The bacon shark should be sold on the other side of the street, and the beach should be just beach, so that when you have surge and all this sort of thing, it wouldn't affect, right, the businesses on the beach. That is you could go anywhere in the world and you don't see people selling bacon shark on the beach. It is on the other side of the road, right?
Well, one of the things I
So
proposed to was, like if you've been
it's
to New
amazing.
Jersey,
Yeah,
New
yeah,
Jersey down the shore there's
yeah,
a boardwalk, a
yeah.
high-rise boardwalk,
Yeah, you
like
see
you
it in
go
Atlantic
Atlantic City.
City and all of these
Yeah,
places. Yeah, you
yeah,
have the
yeah.
beach, right? You
Jersey
have the
City.
road. You go
Yeah.
across now. You parking on the next 2 or 3 blocks, and you walk onto that road, and you can sit down and have a meal. But you don't have the meal on the
No,
beach.
that's a real
Yeah.
boardwalk, not what they built
Yes.
there.
Correct.
That's a real boardwalk in New
So,
Jersey there.
so that is why some of the
That's
best
my
practices.
lifestyle here, Gary. I lived here in Miami Beach. I could tell you how it's done.
Yes.
And I happen to know Dr. Amrup very well too. So
Yes.
I'm good friend of MB and
Yes. Of course. The late
Dr.
MB. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Dr. Messier and Squeaks and these
Yes.
guys.
Correct. Correct. When you know,
I'm
the team.
SCB
The
director.
Mehefil team.
Yes, yes. SCB director of tourism in Tobago used to come over
Yes.
often in Sandy Point and hang out with
Yes.
them and so on.
Yes. I remember Sandy Point. Yes.
Right. So I'm
Yes.
Suman Singh, the former director of tourism, but I'm living here
Right.
now.
Right.
Miami. It's I've been telling Gary for the past week, this interministerial team, what we're talking about, is so relevant.
It
that is the coordinating aspect of all the projects you're going to do, because it have impacts. Something you may do in public admin has impacts in other ministries.
Correct.
And if those technocrats in those ministries don't get a chance to relate that now.
Yes, you work in silos. It's terrible.
Because
You'll waste 5 years.
You end up like Wassa.
Yeah.
They get it rolled here when they just paper. So there's no coordination at all. And
That is
the same thing
important.
is going to happen in a much larger scale if there is no coordination.
I agree.
Ministry of Public Administration is so important.
Yes, it
that
is.
I recommended that we do on the Ministry of Technology and AI, which I sent it to the Prime Minister actually. And that's a little
so what we build in here is an advisory team. Hello, you're welcome to the program too. You can talk.
You can talk for the early childhood strategies we use with Dr. Gopi Singh
So no, I agree with you fully. That Ministry of Public Administration, that interministerial committee, one of the things you have to remember as well. I mean, I worked in the public service since I came out of UWI in 1985. I tell you something. You see, like how this election has happened in this month, right? Last month. What happens in the ministries is they start winding down for almost a year before. They start blocking, they're just holding back, right? So expecting maybe the party in power to come back. Now, when we are ready to leave in 5 years, you will not get anything done for the last year. So essentially, it takes us a year to get things done now when we get in. So you lose 2 years, almost 2 years, because of the bureaucracy of the ministry, people who are working in the ministry. I'm not casting any aspersions, but you see, that is where public administration...
But that's the reality, right? That's the reality of things.
So you lose 2 years because they're going to block everything for the first year until we get in. And then when we finally settle in and we put up permanent secretaries and we get our deputy PSs to support the programs or whatever, 4 years as the election is coming, you're going to see some paperwork just not there. You're going to find a long 6 months before you get a file on a person's desk. It's a crazy thing, you know?
Remember, I was mentioning the same thing.
Yeah, we were beating that. We were repeating that for the last week or so on that.
I was doing Dr. Ramup. I was doing the laptop project at the Ministry of Education. Dr. Gopi called me specifically to do that for him. So the project was held up for 3 months. And within that 3 months, I had to do 6 months of work in 3 months.
Right.
But the team that was selected to do the project had a number of public servants, two PSAs, assistant permanent secretaries, this director, that director, and so on. And, they held up the project, literally held up the project.
There's something about it, and I don't know. Sometimes you can't detect where the hole is. It's so beautifully done. That you feel everything is going nice. They look at you, they speak with you, whatever, and you just cannot drive your programs, as I said. And it will take us 1 year to get in it, and then they're going to take us, when you see the elections coming back in 2020, 2029? 2029, you're going to start getting problems in those ministries a whole year before. I swear to God. So
that's why I was having a conversation. We've been beating around with this for the last week or so, and Suman was explaining this. So we have to create some kind of a structure to address this, because we knew what we went through before, and this government was given a mandate not to maintain the status quo of the PNM party groups. Right?
As a matter of fact, I remember the late Dr. Patrick Manning, right? He had a problem like that, even if he was there. I don't know for what reason he had it, but he formed the special purpose companies, right? In an effort to try to sort of, if he can get rid of that bureaucracy within that public service.
Yes, bypass the system.
Yes. Now Trump is, people will talk about Trump, but Doge is actually kind of getting rid of a lot of that in the US. It's a bad thing, but you never can tell. I mean, I see that Stuart wanted to have a ministry of efficiency, along probably that same lines. But
Then that's when they realize that they're out of they're
correct,
out of
correct.
government.
But so the Prime Minister, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa, SCMP, she did say that no, she don't want to do that. She's just going to make the processes a little better, streamline, map the processes, which is a business process.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that public administration, right, begin to train within public administration, and you can do in-house training, executive coaching, where you can actually train some of your permanent secretaries and deputy permanent secretaries and heads of divisions and departments to become almost like business leaders or managers, you see, so that you create a business process within the ministries. And therefore, the short-term win is to get your interministerial committee, and especially for disaster risk reduction, meaning that flooding is a big ticket item, right? It affects people. Money is spent every year on flooding, and it will come. There's no doubt about it. So that
That's a few weeks away from. And in fact, it
Yes,
started.
that's
I
what I was
think
going to say.
the
Next
rain, the heavy rain
month.
last night.
it's
The heavy
gonna
rain last
come.
night.
It is gonna come. And as I said, the Prime Minister is talking about your boots and get into the system. And she's going to be right, because people are going to now go into communities with their boots and everything else and give hampers and pampers. But I really hope that they don't continue to do that for 5 years, because I really want them to start to step out a bit, look at it more strategically. So although you're going to give the hampers and pampers, you are also going to implement the structural and non-structural. Non-structural mitigation is people is more policy and trying to teach people about how they can be resilient against the disasters. We have communities like in central, right, along the Caroni River, where people already built their homes in stilts. People get flooding and they don't talk about it, because as you know, you go down to Miami and there's flood in the evening, right? And there's flood in Miami, the big United States, there's flood in Miami. And you go down some evenings with heavy rainfall and there's flood. And you know what? You don't hear about it on the news. It's not a big thing, right? It comes up, it drains out. People do go about their business. They have the information that tells you where to go, not to drive, what to do. You live with the water, right? In Amsterdam, they live with the water.
Yes, exactly.
So we need to create that sort of mindset, and that is non-structural mitigation. We have to tell people, listen, the water will come. So what we have to do, we have to embrace the water. We have to develop structural mitigation programs like the Japanese and Guyana, where you build these artificial water channels, right, alongside your natural channels, and make it beautiful, right? There's people only go to the malls in Trinidad, and then when they go to the beaches, they don't even have a toilet on the beach to use. Right. So all of these things, as you say, have to be done with an interministerial committee. You want people to have a better society with less mental stress and mental health. Well, you have to give them places to go, not just to the malls. You understand? They need to go on the beaches. But when you go on the beaches, you must have people taking up the garbage. You must have a place for them to pee. If you go on the Mayaro, if you go on the Maracas lookout, there's not even a place for us to go and use a washroom there. And it is what, 2025. You understand? So I think
it's the jungle mentality. They didn't come out from the jungle with the state of mind, and they feel. We have politicians who have traveled the world and they don't see nothing good for the country. They only see good for themselves.
I think the boss, I call her the boss because we know each other since Jamaica,
No, she has good intentions, but I'm just saying, was the PNM who rule the country most of the independence.
Yeah, I think the people-centered approach, right? And I think the Ministry of the People have to kind of overlook all of these simple things, the little issues, the small things that make a difference, not the big buildings and not the laptops and not the big fancy stuff, the simple things. Like when you go to a beach, right, they must have a place for you to be safe. You must have a washroom to use. The washroom must be properly maintained. There must be a place to put your garbage. When you go in Maracas, you must have a washroom before you go down to the beach. All of these simple things. What about even look at our disability car park, right? Our disability stickers and our disability car park. It's a mess. People park in disability. It's not proper car parks. When you go to the mall or whatever it is, there's no place for the disabled now, and because they are used by strong people who park their cars. There's no law enforcement. There's no stickers. The Ministry of Work they gave the stickers, but the process is flawed. You understand? So there must be a proper. I go to Canada and I have relatives who get disabilities. There's a process, and when you go to park, if you park in a disabled car park, somebody will come and make noise. See, all of these things are the little things that we need to implement and get right in this 5 years.
Yes, but the thing is that 5 years is never
It's
going to
not
be
much.
enough.
No.
Never go. You're looking at least 15 years to really
Yeah.
cement your position.
It's a sad
And
thing.
do a lot of, you see, there's a lot of structural things that need changing.
Yes.
There's a lot of policy things that needs to be changed. There are a lot
Yes.
of strategic things need to be changed. And most of all, it has to be legislation to enact and enforce this.
Yes. I agree. As I said before, you have to make it sustainable, right? You have to create legacies, right? You have to make it last, even if you leave.
Yeah.
And I think that we can start it because it's there. A lot of the things that we talked about is there. It's just that we need to, and I'm hoping that someone listens. Is that you create that interministerial committee? Let us start having cross ministry discussions. Let us look at preventing redundancy, right? Having work done in both ministries that actually could come together. When you create legislation, it doesn't affect one legislation; it affects over 26 or 27 other pieces of legislation. So that it's important. So I think that it is possible with the people that I've seen that the Honorable Prime Minister has put in the cabinet and in her ministry. I think we do have a very good ministry now, a good cabinet. Sorry, and I think that a number of those persons will listen. All right. I think that, and I'm hoping that they do, and they don't, they don't not listen and they switch off their phones and they don't stop answering your emails and all that sort of thing. I think it's important.
Well, Ducky, you can help us in that end where you hand deliver it to the neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yes,
well, I did ask Mr. Suman to help us draft, or to revise or upgrade his past proposal, and you can add to it, being that that the ideas of the team, because I certainly do not intend to back down if these ministers decide to put up a wall.
Yes.
So we will make a proposal. I'm encouraging that, and as we see things as we go along in government onwards, and we see things, we will make a recommendation, and we
Yeah.
will make this recommendation in writing so that they can't say we didn't say.
Okay.
Right? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So you see something. This team that brought you on board here is we are an advisory team. I had an agreement that with the boss lady that I would communicate with her directly, and it's up to her to delegate and instruct. If she don't see it happening,
Yes.
we have to watch her back. If we see something happening, we have to let her know. We just don't to hold back, because we don't want her to get blindsided. This is the last thing I want to see happen with her in this administration, is to get blindsided, with something and get ambushed. We don't want that. So we have to be eyes and ears for her, and we are not here to override any money. We are just recommending to her and let her deal with it at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm
So,
happy. I am happy that you had that discussion with her because, I mean, as you know, I'm her neighbor, and in the last government People's Partnership, we were, we were quite close, and one of the problems we always have with our senior leaders is that they would have a group of persons around them, and they will put the trust in those persons, right?
And you can't access them at all.
And those persons, because they might feel that what you have to offer is either threatening their sort of
yeah. I know. I've been through it.
What will happen is that they will block that message from going through.
Absolutely correct.
So
Absolutely.
that's what I mean. I intend to.
I saw that with my own eyes.
I experienced it. it.
One of the things that I once you can have that, I mean, as I said, the first time I met Mrs. Bissessa, our Prime Minister, was in a use of English class in Mona, Jamaica. I just landed, and that was my first class. And there it is, that was my first class, and she buffed me because there was this pretty Jamaican girl that I was talking to give me some notes, and she saw me speaking in a class, and I never forgot that buff. A pretty lady with long hair, and that was Kamala Prasad Bissessa. And since that buff I got from her, that was the kind of person she is. She's astute. She is, she can buff you. She said she will buff her ministers, right? She's very firm when she's she's around, and she has a good idea of what she's doing. So
But
if
she has a responsibility. She
right,
has a responsibility,
so
and she
you
must get the collaboration.
right. So once you have gotten that assurance that she will listen to you, and one of the most important things is that you don't want people to be around you who tell you what you want to hear. They have to tell you what you need to hear, right? And you must have that ability to say, well, look, at the expense of you might getting vexed or angry a little bit, this is what I see it as. This is my opinion. This is the team of advisors. This is what it is, right? And this is our recommendation. So
and you do a justification why you said that.
And it's not whims and fancies. It's backed up by
simple things.
Correct.
Especially, look, I'm telling Gary this, that we need to align whatever we're doing to these 11 or 13 growth goals we have.
Correct.
That is the core of our development process.
Yes.
If your input does not match your output, it makes no sense. There's going to be no development. For example,
you preached. Yeah.
You see that interministerial team is so critical. Yes. I don't think, most of the ministers, the party and having a good time, but none, I'm sure very few is thinking along those lines.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you a simple example. They have lumped the AI into the Ministry of Public Admin.
Yes.
We have a Ministry of Tertiary Education.
Yes.
We have a Ministry of Education.
Yes.
We have Institutes of Technology under the UTT.
Yes.
But the backbone of AI, I am an AI practitioner. I know, I can tell you, I went through the process.
Yes.
Right? From my Trinidad education, I could tell you, I told Dr. Dowler that because I work with him closely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we need to change the curriculum for the technology side.
Yeah.
To do a little bit some programming, as well as the new mathematics. The mathematics involved is not the traditional mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Is calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3, a lot of integration. All this sort of thing is different from what you do in the secondary schools.
No, quantum computing is coming up in the back there as well.
Wow, the quantum going to change everything. Now here is it. What we lump AI and is not with education. It's right now is if you don't have that cross training or that coordination among the ministries, one is going to reside in public admin.
Yes.
The curriculum never get changed.
Yes.
Tertiary education never going to see it.
Yes.
Then what is the output of students we're going to get? Someone who is not capable of manning the technology side, or the smart city side, which we want to introduce smart cities in St. Augustine. I told Dr. Dalway we should do it in San Fernando as well.
Yeah.
Set up an AI and technology center in that third street there where by the playground.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about,
Right, and do it there. So they're trying to do pockets in them. Once pockets, these are like little models.
No, as I said, that one of we have to lobby for that, because the first thing they will say, well, that's what cabinet is for. But cabinet, the time that they spend, I remember presenting in front of cabinet, and I was given like 1 minute to present a project that is like, took us about months to develop, and 1 minute because the cabinet is run so fast. No, cabinet is not the forum. They need to have these interministerial meetings, and that feeds back to cabinet in terms of a report, so that they can actually say, well, look, this is on disaster risk management. The next one is going to be on our fourth industrial age and how it impacts all ministries, because AI is not a separate tool, nor is it's actually, AI is embedded, and it transcends all
everything. Right? I'm doing a lot of AI in healthcare right now.
Right. You see
AI in healthcare.
They used to talk about gender, right? The environment, right? And now you have to put AI as a cross-cutting team. Everything that you do in all policies and programs, you have to embed AI as a cross-cutting team. So that I hope that public administration, AI, where it rests, can come together in these interministerial committees and ensure that all programming, all anything related to anything in terms of education, information, communication, plans, development has the AI backbone in it. And I think that they will be in charge of policy and implement. And I really feel that we first should lobby for these interministerial teams,
That's the first thing. 100% agree with you, because if that is not there, a year will pass, 2 years will pass, we ain't seeing the same, For the past 10 years, we're trying to set up digitization and digitalization. It has gone
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah.
It has gone nowhere because of the same thing.
Yes.
One
Correct.
part is being handled at this ministry, another part is handled by, iGov, another part is handled at the corner down there.
Absolutely.
So there is no coordination, one central processing area.
And you see that is why, in my opinion, they lost the election, right? Because I remember when Franklin Khan was alive, he was a patient of mine, and his family, as a matter of fact, because he had an injury with his family very early in his term, and I was the doctor, and they had a strike when Hamza Rafiq was the Minister of Health. They had a strike. And then after that, the PNM won, right? And he came in as minister, and he had an injury up at the beach house where he was there with his children. And I happened to operate on his children as an emergency. And we developed a friendship after. And I remember he telling me one thing, he said, people don't win elections in Trinidad and Tobago, they lose them. So what happened is that PNM lost the election because a lot of what you are saying there, I hope that the UNC team, right, understands that is what causes you to lose an election. Is that everybody doing things in silo. You put a lot of money together, but you need to bring it now, let it gel, right? And then when you do now, your outputs are going to be better, not just measured, but you're going to have better outputs that are visible to the public. Outcomes. And I think that's very important, that your outcomes, right, are are actually now stated in your goals and get it done that way rather than just having silos. So I really hope that they take our advice in that regard.
Yeah, because
gentlemen, the way I put it is Trinidad and Tobago belongs to all of us, and all of us has a right to participate.
Yeah.
And I got into the fights with the PNM administration in the early days of this border closure, and they know I wasn't backing down. And as much as they refused to talk to me, I got people of the various ministries to collaborate.
Yes.
So these people have this how to say, this colonial kind of way. Even though we independent so many years, they still have some habits.
Yeah.
And I intend to break down the door. That is my attitude. I am not going to back down.
I hope I given an opportunity in this 5 years. I mean, I'm 63 years old now, and I'm hoping that this year I can be given the opportunity, to maybe look at working closely with the Ministry of Home Affairs, because in that ministry you have ODPM, right, which I indicated to you the need for legislation.
So ODPM will fall under Home Affairs.
Yes, correct. And also, as you know, I don't know if you know, but I have a master's in forensic medicine. I'm a medical examiner, so to speak. I mean, when I left ODPM, I'm an orthopedic and trauma surgeon, for those of you who may not know. But also I decided, I want to get involved in crime fighting. So I went and did a master's in forensic medicine at the University of Florida, right? And I went and I did that, and I'm actually like a qualified medical examiner. So the point about it is that,
so you could lead a team then, basically. You're qualified being that your broad knowledge.
I have a lot of training in forensic medicine, and as you know, I have an MBA in healthcare management. So I think I do have the ability to do that. And of course, with ODPM, I have the disaster risk reduction expertise. So that is a ministry that I can help in and help to develop the. Remember, she was talking about training of forensics in this DB campus, right? That will come under that ministry. She also talked about
that will be clear within close range of your vicinity too.
Correct. And then she also talked about negligence for how I have sustained over the last 10 years, because of the forensic medicine training, I do a lot of analysis of medical records, right, for persons who are claiming negligence. Now, she said on the platform that she wants to help the public because we have a lot of problems with negligence, and that you can give free access, and that will fall under forensic medicine and legal medicine analysis of medical records. So again, that is something that is in that ministry under the forensics division. So I'm hoping.
But as you said that,
yeah,
as you said that, what I see in Trinidad is people have done things because they can get away with it. There was no one to hold them accountable. So we need the
medical malpractice insurance and so on.
Yeah, not only that, but the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
Has to set up a structure where they enforce, they supervise, and they chastise people before we get to the lawsuit part. We are more interested in preventing the
All
lawsuit,
right. Good.
because that's taxpayers' money going down the drain there too. And then it caused in my course of life, and we are more interested in saving the life than that part of we don't want to get to that point. So what I'm looking for is to get our Ministry of Health to supervise, the doctors and the staff under their watch, that they maintain a certain standard of performance.
Yeah.
That so they hold them accountable.
One of the things, Gary, is that there is a tool. As I said, I told you I have an MBA in healthcare management, right? And for the past 10 years, I've been trying to get involved, and the PNM has victimized me. I haven't gotten a job anyway. But listen to me. There is a tool that is used. If you type it in your computer after, it's called Enterprise Risk Management. Enterprise Risk Management in Healthcare and Root Cause Analysis. This is what Dr. Bodo has to implement in all his RHAs, and it has to be driven. So what it is a risk-based approach to the delivery of healthcare. So what it does is a tool that is given to all, and it works very close with the quality department, the quality managers. So the quality managers becomes quality risk managers, because what they do for each RHA, there are different risks. Some the same, but there are different risks that they look at the cyber hack that they had. So what it is that there are risks, right? And what it is a no blame. It's a no blame tool where you blame the system and the process rather than the doctor or the nurse who might have made an error because she didn't have the right tools to do it, etc. Or she was tired doing it because they had short staff. Or the doctor who had to drive from here to quite down Point Fortin when another 5 doctors live close to Point Fortin, etc. So you don't blame the doctor, you blame
yeah. We can't play. This is why I say how we manage. This is what I'm looking for. How we manage ourselves.
Yeah, that's
now
correct.
I'm going to send you some. I'm sending some pictures.
That's a tool. If he can do that, he will prevent a lot of people from getting the situation where you have negligence lawsuits, because you create the environment, right, where it's a risk-based environment. So you begin to look at your risks, and that is it has been done all over the world. And if you look at some of Kaiser, enterprise risk management in healthcare, and look at Kaiser Permanente and all of these people, they have introduced that system, and it's working because, as you know, USA and Canada is a place where negligence is a big business, right? And therefore they had to reduce that. Big business.
So we had a lady here a few weeks ago. In fact, I was dealing with the situation. Was one of somebody I helped get back in the country. Her mom. There was a circulation problem in the leg. The process of going through to get any kind of healthcare in Trinidad. They ended up putting a stent in the leg. Right, and it slipped me to contact you because my head was so hot with so many things. But anyway, the leg started getting bad, so they were trying to go back and forth between the health center and the hospital, and they ended up taking out the mount too. They had the lady sitting in her own wheelchair. Fortunately, she had one, otherwise they'd have put her in the bench for 3 days and can't get a bed in the emergency room, and they'll be sleeping on the chair. They won't clean chair or anything like that. Then they went and put an IV in she hand. And they didn't put the IV in the vein, they put it under the skin and caused the hand. I'm going to send you the pictures, Dr. Ramrup, I'm going to send you the pictures. And caused the flesh on the top of the palm of the hand to deteriorate. So when they ended up then they dismissed her because it was the Easter holidays.
Yeah.
And then so they take her to San Fernando, and they ended up having to cut all that flesh off the top of the hand. And apparently they didn't use much anesthesia because I had the lady ball down the place.
Oh my
right?
God.
Okay. And then they wasn't cleaning the wound daily as they should be. So there was an issue. Then they sent her back, dismissed her, and said she has to go back to Mount Hope because they don't have the machinery there to do the angio.
Right.
And so you have to go back to Mount. So we have to go through the same process. We can 3 days in to get the doctor attention over there. And we discovered that there was a doctor there who has a private practice who wanted to do the job outside the hospital, but and charge X amount of money, even though he working in the hospital. He was not attending to them there. He ignored them there, and trying to force them to go to his private practice, but they didn't have that money, and the state was paying him for that. So the treatment is bad there. And I mean, I'll send you the pictures of how this thing really is. And like I said, it really slipped me to contact you.
Yeah.
But so we definitely need this, the management of things to be
Yeah.
fixed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see people like yourself get ignored on your recommendation, because I know
Right.
you're highly qualified to make your contribution and helping us upgrade this thing. So put whatever you can together, and we will do a combination of things. But go ahead, guys.
Sure. I mean, definitely. I mean, I just do. I hope I could be of some help because, as I said, for 10 years, I'm just totally bored. You know, when you have Mr. Singh, you know what I'm talking about. You have
Yeah,
all of
I left for this
yeah,
10 years because I after
yeah,
2016
yeah.
I said I ain't going to put up
You
to
know,
this.
like when you have all of this knowledge in your head and you know that you could do something, and then you can't share it. You can't. It's not
It's
money. It's not that the money you're looking for. You know, you're just looking to engage and teach and improve and be part of it. And we are human beings. You know, we don't sit in a room and, I mean, yes, I'm paying for my grandchild. I love that, and I could even do that and go to Canada and play with my daughters there too. You know, but sometimes you just need to do something. And for 10 years, I've been
absolutely,
given that opportunity. And I do
absolutely.
have my friends there now. I mean, I mean, I could count now how many persons that I know. I mean, before they won, before they went, they got minister portfolios. I mean, I could have spoken to them. I don't know if I could do that now because, you know, sometimes that changes as well. But, you know, I'm hoping that they listen to us and, you know, we have something to
Because
offer. I hope they could listen, you know.
yeah, I have so much institutional experience. It's a
Yeah.
shame. I told Gary I have 5 core disciplines.
Yes.
I have a master's in IT,
Mm-hmm.
master's in tourism and hospitality,
Mm-hmm.
master's in electronic marketing.
Mm.
I've
Okay.
been a financial controller for 10 years here in Miami.
Mm. Hmm.
I said when I left Trinidad in 2016 for the same reason, government
Yeah.
change and so on.
Yeah.
I was director of tourism in Tobago. I
Right.
was director of ICT
Mm-hmm.
and so on. When I came here, because nobody's using your skills,
No, they don't want it.
you get
They don't want
and,
frustrated.
and, and not only they're not using it, and it is very much needed,
Oh,
because
tell me about it.
because the thing is, the country is going to hell, but
Yeah.
they don't care.
So the whole thing of e-government, digitization and digitalization.
it. Yeah.
Huh? I came here and I said, that instead of wasting time, let me upskill myself. I have always been at the forefront of technology.
Yeah.
So I said, let me upskill myself. So I did data analytics, a specialist in data analytics. I
Mm-hmm.
specialize in digital marketing strategy. I
Mm-hmm.
specialize in AI.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I using my experience, what I have acquired over all these years,
Mm-hmm.
and using this cutting edge technology today
Mm-hmm.
in the form of data and analytics and digitization and AI to
Mm-hmm.
go forward.
Yes.
Anything. I did a lot of work in AI and healthcare. I did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work with AI and business,
Yes.
AI and education. In fact, I did the laptop project in 2011 when nobody couldn't handle it, and it saved the government 30 million.
Look at that.
On top of that, they use that now as a blueprint going forward. It was so good.
Right.
They use that for all these, ensuing years after that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you have so much to offer. You're willing to offer it, but as you say, there are little enclaves here and there that
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
think they want to take over their job and this and that. And then the problem with contract employees and public servants,
Yeah.
the rule is that public servants don't take instructions from contract employees.
Mm-hmm.
Ministers cannot say anything because they cannot hire or fire anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
you run up against a wall.
Yes.
You're beating down
Right.
a wall all this time.
Yeah.
You're the one called in to troubleshoot and act like a CEO, but you
Yeah.
have no jurisdiction on the staff underneath of you.
Yeah.
How can you go forward?
Yeah.
Thank God I finished that project and within the time frame. 2 days before she decided to hand out the laptops.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I'm willing to go back and do a lot of work, adding the technology side of things, the AI side of things, the strategic planning and implementation side of things in the whole tourism sector. You know, you name it, digitization and digitalization, all these things. There's need. We have passed that time of we are 8 to 10 years behind the curve right now. And if
Yeah.
you don't set up curriculums, to go into tertiary education, to start to utilize the so-called brightest students in the area of technology and AI. How are we going to fulfill the need, the HR need, to make sure that you achieve these 10 or 11 growth goals? This is my problem.
Yeah.
I'm seeing coming through. You will not have the requisite human resource capability to do implement these 10 or 11 growth goals. Example, in the East-West corridor, you want to study biotechnology stuff, right?
Yes.
How many of us are trained in biotechnology? What are we going to produce? I mean, it sounds good that it's going to do a growth poly, but have we identified what it's going to produce? Have we identified the roadmap? Have we identified what metrics you're going to use? What KPI, key performance indicator? What is its strategic goal? None of that has been done.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't have this interministerial team, public admin was, AI is their portfolio. So they have no linkages with education, no linkage with tertiary, ministry of tertiary. So you have misfits all over the place.
Yeah, I didn't see the communication portfolio, like if they have to make announcements on behalf of the government, but I guess that'll probably come from the office of the Prime Minister, most likely.
Yes. Also, I didn't see anything concrete on trade and investments.
I think what she said when she finished was that there was going to be the minister who they assigned for that task is abroad and he's coming back, or I don't know who it is, a he or she, but they're coming back soon. So hopefully,
the person was outside the country, so they're going to do that. They're going to fulfill that.
I think they put Gosain as a parliamentary secretary.
Parliamentary, yes, in charge of tourism as well.
Trade and investment, and tourism.
Putting that more on the back burner than anything else,
Yeah. So, but it's important. Like when we talked about the development of our coastal areas, when you look at, first of all, the ability for us, we are losing coastline. That's one. Climate change, two.
Climate change.
We have surge flooding. So therefore, you don't want to go and put bacon shark areas on the beach, right? Building the development of causeways rather than actually building roads.
Miami is full of that,
Well, you could set up the big shark thing as a mobile unit. They could allow the mobile.
And again, as I said, if you develop your beach and you have your boardwalk and then you have your road, you can have it on the boardwalk. The point about it is, and these are movable. You don't want to have anything permanent, so that if you have, tsunamis or surge, you want to move those things. But on the other side of the road, there is where you're going to have your fixed establishment, your permanent infrastructure. And drainage and everything else, So I think that these are the things that you would have to have now, not just planning and development, but you have tourism, because those are things. If you build a causeway, that's an attraction. You know what I mean? People could come and they could park and look out, and they have like things selling on the evening, and you have a beautiful view of the sunset in Manzanilla, and look at the beautiful coastline we have. So there are opportunities, so that if you just have, as you said, people operating in silos, 5 years are going to go by, well, 3 years.
They're going to do nothing. Nothing going to do nothing.
And then when you come by the elections now in 2030, then you have a problem, just like PNM, because you have nothing substantial to show. Everybody's doing everything in silos.
Yeah, and not only that, I looking at some of the data as a data analyst, not comparing the 2020 figures with the 2025 figures, but you look at how many voters in the UNC gained versus the PNM. And you see, Gary, I didn't know you had a chance to look at it. It was a spread of about 110,000 votes between the UNC and the PNM.
It was too fine. I still have to. I didn't get a chance. I was going to transfer it.
I blew it up. So that was. But if the UNC really gained about 20 something thousand votes.
But I just kind of glimpsed the result with Dr. Chaitan there, and I saw Patriotic took about 500 and something votes, and NTA, with those votes could have helped us won that seat. And to the fact that those individuals knew how serious this mission was. This was not an ordinary election. This was a life and death mission where our country and our citizens' lives are in danger. whether by medical treatment of the government health facility, or someone coming into your house, kidnapping your kids. In fact, I just had a friend who called me. I didn't talk to him for a little while. Tell me he had to leave Trinidad because they tried to kidnap his child, and the kidnapping is involved with members of the police force. Okay, so we have a lot to clean up, and how we do about this. I mean, we need help. We need help, because if you have members of the police force involved with criminals in extorting money for and threatening our citizens' lives and causing us to flee our country, is this how they protect and serve? I mean, this has to be them jail sentence has to be double and triple, because those are the ones in charge of enforcing the law.
Yeah, that's how it is more all over the world, where the law enforcement get the stiffest penalties. Venezuela, USA is the same thing. You get this separate, you don't get a pension. You call it administrative leave, but no pay. Only in Trinidad they get administrative leave with pay. They suspend a policeman.
But everybody's scratching each other back, and everybody bring their friends and family into the force,
so they get
right?
paid.
And this is why this is a structure that was built by Eric William and then maintained by Eric William, and they use race and everything else to get themselves in and steal election. I think they get some fair warning about this election, though. I will tell you that. Yeah. Some fair warning came from over here about this election. Yeah. And you see they got dumbfounded. You see they get dumbfounded.
I don't know. You might alert Dr. Ramrup about that. How Piako was busy that a couple of days before.
Well, I saw this big jet, and I said, for real?
The C-130, the C5. When five helicopters came out the belly. They were the Apache helicopters.
Right.
Where you cannot see them on the radar. No radar. You cannot pick them up on the radar. It was there maneuvering all over that couple of days before.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was interest, putting it mildly.
Yes.
Yeah, and they did try. Let me tell you something. They used the police to slow down the flow of traffic. With the votes and things like that, cause congestion. They would think wasn't properly well organized. The EPC tried them thing. We had one guy in the program here. His daughter was handicapped. They didn't allow her to vote. But we seen people on the Port of Spain side with the handicapped child, special needs child voting. And they're boasting about it. It was all up in the press, right? But we have a lot of investigative work to do, and so the support I see is very much needed. Where we have to do what we can to watch the backs as we see things happening, especially Dr. Rambo, where you on the ground, a person like yourself is on the ground. You are seeing. Don't hesitate to say something. And compile it into our advisory team here. And I intend to bring this to the attention of the Prime Minister. It's up to her what she does with it afterwards, But we have no authority to instruct anybody. We're just going to advise, and it's up to her how she deals with it. And I know she's not taking any nonsense. But I was saying to Suman, the people gave us a mandate to upgrade the level of service delivery. Yeah. And we should not allow any PS or party card employee within the system to obstruct the government. And the minute that starts to happen, we have to call them out on it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that the minister is in charge of the permanent secretary. Even the permanent secretary is under him. So if Sumant himself is a contractor, he relays this information to the minister. It's the minister's responsibility now to deal with the permanent secretary and make sure that this thing is follow up and follow through.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is how it's supposed to be. Now, we understand that Sumant would not have the authority to direct the permanent secretary, but he can advise the permanent secretary. Yeah. And the minister has to remain fully engaged that when he hires a person like Sumant to upgrade the system, that there's follow through taking place. I mean, that's basic one-on-one administration, right?
Yeah.
And there has to be accountability. So we're not. My thing is we allow somebody to fire themselves by not complying.
Yes.
They refuse to comply. They fire themselves, right? Yes. We then fire you. You fire yourself, and we have to document your conduct. And in that you refuse, you decide not to show up to work. You leave the meeting. You didn't. Whatever you did. Like I heard quite a bit of things. You pick up yourself when you're gone somewhere when the meeting was supposed to take place. And you make it a habit of doing that. All these things, and you don't want to give the government a hard time. The government is not obligated to keep you employed because of that behavior, because you feed you in the union, and also PSA. PSA. Well, I like the former member of the PSA got that labor minister
Yeah.
type position there. So I'm just saying we should say to PSA, well, yes, we're giving you that money, we're giving you that 10% raise, but we want something in return.
Yeah.
You understand? There has to be the understanding has to be spelled out, and I think Mrs. Bisesa did so today, where she tends to buff people if they don't perform. They're
Well,
gonna get buffed.
Remember, she's acting as a CEO, literally as a
She's the
CEO of the
CEO of the
cabinet.
country. The people hired her. They hired her.
She's the CEO of the cabinet. Remember, so these ministers who fallen short on the job, she has to pull them up.
So we see things happening. We have to be here, eyes and ears. You guys you're pretty much experienced and skilled. I mean, you know this like the back of your hand. So we are dependent like people on you, like yourself, and bring people on board who you are confident will work alongside you.
Well, I hope I mean, I'm glad in a sense. I do hope that the boss gives me a chance to help Minister Alexander in the Home Affairs, because I think, looking at my sort of experience, I worked in ODPM, as you know, before. I do have the forensics background, the healthcare, whatever. I do feel public safety will come under that ministry, forensics as well, and the training and the negligence and whatever. So I do hope that somebody could. I mean, I actually hope that they can give me a job, or as an advisor to him or something, so that we can actually help him to get that particular part of the crime and the public safety in terms of disaster management in order. I just hope for that opportunity. If I don't get that opportunity, yes, we will work here, but that's something I think I can do. Maybe we should lobby. I could lobby for that. I'm trying, but you know how it goes. We'll try.
I myself in the same position. I am willing to come back and advise in a number of core areas, especially in education, and tourism, higher education, tertiary education, technology, data. The whole world is driven by something called data right now.
Correct. My daughter is she's actually
data analytics.
She did a master's in GIS in Toronto. She's a vice president in a company called Environics. They're actually a subsidiary of Bell.
Okay.
And she does
Canada. She
does a lot of data analytics there, and she did a GIS first degree in Ryerson, and then she did a master's in Ryerson, and it's called TGU now, and she actually is a vice president of the data analytic firm. They do a lot of work in data analytics for Toronto.
Everything, in the early days of MBA, when I did mine in 88, 86, 88, cash was king.
Yeah.
In the year 2000, content was king. And today, 20 years later, data is king. Without data, there's no AI. Without data, there is no AI. So data analytics is the thing in the world right now.
Yeah.
Well, the AI must depend on the data. You mean that's the only way it functions.
It's the fuel. That's the fuel. It's like the gas in the car.
Yeah.
If you don't have the data, there's no AI if they don't have these models.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Ramrup, you were added to the group there that everybody's in there.
Thank you very much.
Right. So, we can make you send your information and make your recommendation. You want to make your recommendation early, so that they know. You see, they have to understand. Especially Roger is new to this thing, so he has to understand what resources he has.
Yes.
You understand, and that is why I'm pulling everybody together. So also. This group been existing for a while, and the PNM didn't make there was some interaction between the PNM and the UNC people when some floods take place before, with like people like Esmond Ford and things. But I brought everybody in this group before, where there was non-political in the group here. Right. But being that what took place, I've kind of removed those who are from the other side. So that no interference with our communication and obstruction and whatever it is, But what I'm saying to you is that I'm bringing everybody together. So if there's a problem in Penal or the problem in St. Augustine, say like for instance, the example Khadija made a post, Jack's for example, that something happened in her constituency, the person on the other side of the country could see, and she knows what they know what the need is, and they could probably assist her,
Right.
with that. I'm happy also that she got the position of
Local
Minister of
government,
Local
local,
Government.
rural
Yeah,
and local.
I
Yeah.
kind of foresee that, and I was
Yeah.
hoping that would take place. And
Yeah, because that's another thing. That's another minister would have to be involved in the interministerial committee, because flooding,
right,
as
right.
I started first, it's the current government has decentralized it. When People's Partnership was there, we put more strength in the ODPM, and ODPM was performing well. So the ability to coordinate, right? And one of the things about disasters and emergencies, they don't have a time. It can happen anytime. So what the weakness of the local government is, you don't already have a 24-hour worker, right? The disaster units are public servants. But the National Operations Center, where you have the ODPM soldier who will sit there with the other soldiers and SSA and military and Coast Guard and everything, they're watching what's going on in the country like a brain, as I told you in the beginning. So the time, if a cell has a little injury down in Point and Cedars, the cell could deal with it, no problem, because that's okay. But when it overwhelms, then Central Command comes in, because they have an oversight. So that when you send a military now, you don't go and look for where the problem is. You go directly to the school that is full, that is
exactly
across
where
the
it's
river.
happening.
Yeah, so you go and save the children. But if you don't know where to go and you go looking for the disaster, that's disaster. You know what I mean? So this is
Well,
where I hope that we can add to the honorable minister Alexander, because I think that he's actually going to be green. I don't think they gave him a minister in that ministry either. So I think that yes, he can engage his
No,
fellow.
he's the minister of Homeland Security.
That's what I'm saying, Homeland Security. What I'm saying, he doesn't have a minister in
Homeland
his.
Security comes like national security there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So he doesn't
so
have a minister in that ministry to help him as such. I don't think anybody was appointed. I don't think a
well,
parliamentary secretary either was appointed.
Correct.
maybe
So
they
he's
will, but what I'm
alone.
saying to you, your experience and your expertise is very much needed, and
But
that
this is why
information needs to
I'll send
come.
the recommendations on the chat and maybe a PDF, and we could probably push it through. But I would like the opportunity to give him some help, in that regard.
Right, yeah, well, yeah. So like I said, we're gonna
Yeah,
WhatsApp him directly.
yeah,
So you see what I'm saying? I want him to know off the bat what kind of
good.
backup he has,
Right.
so that we can move forward. I don't want him to be looking around. He must know what he has under his wings there,
Yes, correct.
and maybe arrange. He's a cool guy. We arrange
Yeah,
a meeting with him, with you and him, and I mean you
yeah,
on the ground there.
yeah.
I am just kind of facilitating.
That'd be nice.
Uh,
Yeah,
so that way, but the disaster preparation has to be broken down at the community level, which we were
yes.
talking about, and there was an idea I was pushing when Colonel Carrazales was there, and she has strongly supported me. In fact, she wanted to help me put supplies in different parts of the country,
Right.
so
She
it
was
was accessible.
she was at the embassy.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
embassy.
she was
She was a wonderful lady, and she's very
Yeah,
interested in helping.
yeah.
And so the resources must be within the range of the local community, some extra training for the
Yeah,
volunteers. You
yeah,
want to encourage the volunteer training, people to volunteer with your additional military and whatever you have there. But there must be
yeah.
community volunteers. There must be, and a lot
Right.
of people showed interest,
And
A
you
lot
see,
of people are,
this is where Khadija will come in, because as you know, how the burgesses work is that the local government authority, the municipalities, are the
right.
ones that actually translate any policy into the communities, and they're the ones that facilitate that entry into the community legally and otherwise. So that
So
will
I
be
had
what
all the
Khadija will
discussion
come in.
already with boss
Yeah,
lady, and I had sent you what I had from here in New
yeah,
Jersey, because I have a guy I will add to the composition next week. He's
right.
traveling,
Okay,
um, and but she had liked what I was saying, and I wanted to create a central training center down in Central there for one
right.
reason, just to kick it off the ground, and then we could have in other areas. But
Yeah.
you see, because people are getting shot and thrown in the back of a pickup truck, and they
Yeah.
bleed out by the time they reach.
Well, that's another problem, because
you
when
know,
Hamza Rafiq was minister, right? He introduced the emergency medical system, EMS, right? And I was one of the doctors who worked with Dr. Rashid Adam, right? He was the national. We actually were the ones who developed all the national policy and standing orders for the ambulance system that we have now. Dr. Rashid Adam, and myself. And what happened is that whole ambulance system has remained, right, a basic EMT system, EMT basic, right? The government did not even go forward and now legislate the need to have intermediates or paramedics. There was a long
Right,
time.
and was something I was trying to get done.
That's
So,
right.
like we have it here in the US, you see
That's
what we
right.
have.
So when you
Basically,
come to my
yeah.
home, and I told Greg that a couple of days ago, I said, Greg, listen, I get a heart attack. I have a 70% block in my heart, right? They did my angiogram, it's blocked. Thank God the American Cardiac Association heart says, okay, that's fine. That's borderline, treated medically, I'm fine. But, it could go to 80 tomorrow or 90, stress, cholesterol, whatever. And they come home to do my resuscitation. So they do my chest compression. As you know, they don't do mouth to mouth again. They do my chest compression and they get my heart beating. They cannot keep my heart beating to take me to San Fernando because there's no paramedics. They can't put up a drip. They can't give me the medicine. You understand? They can't put on the defibrillator. In other words, there's no legislation that allows them to do that. So,
well, not only that, the ambulance is just an oxygen tank, so the supply is not there, right? You just have a donkey cart with flashing lights.
It is 2025 for God's sakes. And you know what happened is that what amazes me, you could start thinking out of the box, right? We have over 150 doctors graduate from university every year, and there's no place for them. Some of them are selling doubles. Some of them are selling soft drinks at the side of the road. I swear to God, it's like Cuba, right? And all you need to do is to train that guy in ALS and put him on an ambulance, or at least put him in a vehicle to support the ambulance, like in other countries of the world. Exactly. So that when they go to a call, which is a code red or a code blue, the doctor will come in the back of the vehicle and do the ALS there. So you have the doctors, you have the facilities, you don't even have to get the paramedics.
But not only that, the system in the ambulance has to be set up where it's communicating with the emergency trauma center, and the information is relayed. So by the time you reach the hospital, that information is already ready for you.
Right. So you see, even if Bodo doesn't want me to interfere with his plans, I'm just saying, right? Under the Ministry of Home Affairs, you have the fire services. You understand? These are guys who actually, if you really think about Trinidad and Tobago, they are the first on the scene in almost all the accidents. They and the police, not the ambulance. They come after, right? So we had a time when we trained our fire services men as paramedics, because I'm telling you straight off, right? The country, except during the dry season, they have these little fires that they go on out and whatever. But a fire services person might go through his whole career and not fight a fire, in Trinidad. And it's a big service.
Well, some of them don't even have a fire brigade.
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that the fire service is underutilized. So you have these ambulances and they can be trained as paramedics, you see, or they can have doctors going with the ambulance system and with the paramedics. So see,
well, that could be part of the training.
Yes, there are things that could be done that could improve our country and help people. We have the highest incidence of diabetics in the Caribbean, 14% diabetic compared to 13% Caribbean average and 12% in the rest of the world. So we are producing heart attacks. So, I think we really need to look at all of these things and try to find quick win solutions, right? And engage in the longer term, right? And see how best we could go for another 5 years, because we shouldn't be thinking about what's happening in this 5 years, I think we should be aiming at what's going to be happening between 2030, right, and 2035.
Yeah, but Doc, I want to get certain things done under this 5 years so the people can see.
We need to start it, but you see, that's what PNM does best, When they win an election, right, they don't really think about the 5 years and go and say, well, I did this and I'm going to do this and PNM did this. And they don't go and say, I'm fighting an election again. And they start thinking about the other 5 years they're going to come back in. And I think that is what we have to do. We have to have that mentality within our ministers now. We already won the election. Don't want to fight no elections now. Do what you have to do, but concentrate on what's going to happen between 2030 and 2035. Because you need to win that election now. So
I had both Dr. Gopi Singh and Dr. Bodo here, and we have discussed these things at length. Yes. So I know he's interested in it.
Right.
But he has a lot on his plate now.
He's going to have a lot. Yes.
And so the assistance from you and others like yourself is absolutely necessary.
Well, I like the forum, and I hope that we do have some sort of say. I mean, at least we have a voice, you know what I mean, and they hear us. So I like it. It's timely, and now I just looked at this swearing-in before we came onto the program, and I'm happy, I'm excited, and I'm willing to do something, and I see this as an opportunity, and I hope that we can muster the support from our colleagues who are there now, who has the reign, and and we can move forward.
Yeah, because I want to get, like I said, I want to get this structure set up for
Yeah.
the paramedics, and it must be a combination of where the volunteers can get trained alongside those who are being hired for the job, the paid employee.
Yes.
So we want to create the idea of creating the community. Like I said, in Komoto Manzalina, we had gotten about 200 people who was interested,
Yeah, I
right?
know. I
And the
know.
government.
But, this boy, he had called me. Rai Ragbear had called
Before
me.
Rai, we had set it up under
Before I,
Christine. She had
oh,
200
Christine.
people,
Okay, right.
and
So Rai had called me
but
about
everything
that.
die
Yeah,
up there. I don't know what took place with Rai, but
yeah. Rai had called me, and we were going to do some of the training because I mean I am one of the persons who do the training, and we were
well,
going to help
Christine is the
her.
one who really set it in motion. I don't
I
know what
remember
Rai did
doing
after.
some
Yeah,
training with Christine when I was in
yeah,
ODPM, and we had given out a lot of stuff with Christine on that end, from ODPM with the kits and things to help them, the CERT kits, right? The
right,
Community Emergency Response Trauma kits. So we did give
right.
her a lot of kits when I was ODPM. I did help her a lot with that program. Yeah,
Yeah, so we want that education. We want to bring that alive as quick as possible.
yeah,
I want to see we get that a lot of things done under that for the as far as the EMT is concerned.
yeah.
Both the with the ambulance system upgraded and equipment there, so that we can get that set up. The the communication with the hospital. I mean, Mount Hope is chaos. Well, I know the Cuba Hospital is going to reopen, but
Oh,
these things
thank God.
has to be
Yeah,
done
yeah,
within the first 5 years, this ambulance has to be all fitted. The
yeah.
training has to be done. This training system has to be put in place. And I'm going to make noise like hell from over here. And I am calling on and all the backups here, like yourself. And we had another doctor here, last night, Dr. Parum, who works. He's a surgeon. He's all kind of specialist, trauma response and everything also. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a combination of people, and the recommendation I want to see that we put pen to paper and bring it to the government as quick as possible. Don't back down. I'm
Sure.
not backing down. And we're staying in their face.
Yeah.
Doc, I want to ask you a little question. My observation, I mean, every time I go back home in August, July, August for a little week or two, why has there been so much flooding?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say for the past 5 years, and it has been so much more intense. Besides global warming and so on, we know that those are
Yeah.
out of our hands,
Mm-hmm.
and the negligence of not cleaning the waterways and so on.
Yes.
But the intensity of the rainfall, we know that that's also true.
Yeah.
But there is much more flooding in the Woodland, Bay Bay area than any time I have known myself. And I'm from South Bad
Yes.
all the time.
Well,
And
the reason being is it's a very simple thing. It's science, and they did that by the way they found out what was the reason is that they use these radioactive beads, right? Where they
Mhm.
put the radioactive beads, right? Some little beads, right? And they let the beads go in the
yes,
community. And when the rainfall came, right, they followed the beads, right?
correct.
They did that in England. Well, I mean, in one of the cities there. I can't remember what city it was, and they were able to look at the beads using the drones, and they mapped the areas where the radioactivity was, right? So they begin to see then what was the trend, and they developed the
Probe.
models based on those radioactive
Yes.
beads, right?
Yes.
And what they found was that, I mean, all things being equal, of course, it's a socio natural hazard. It's just not just natural hazard flooding, it's a socio natural hazard. So
Okay.
you have to look at the social causes and triggers as well as the natural causes. And what we found is that because of the development, when development doesn't go hand in hand, right, with public, with planning and development and policy in terms of building codes and zoning, right, what you find is that people are going to build these big developments, and that's what happened in Trinidad. They build a lot of these houses, but then they didn't look at things like the soil, the sewer system that they were putting in. In fact, my first place I lived was in Palmys, and they had the first set of sewer system in Palmys in San Fernando there, right, just by the
Mhm.
park. And
Yeah.
they had to condemn that and go back to sewer system because although it had the natural sewer, it was stinking and it was backed up because the whole engineering of that whole thing was outdated and it didn't plan for the next 5-10 years. So what is happening is that when you look at Trinidad and they build a bridge, for example, right? They build a bridge with just 2 lanes, right? They build a bridge at the same level of the road. But then you know that there are going to be more cars in the next 10, 15 years, right? You know that you're going to have to elevate that bridge. You know you'll have to widen the bridge. So the money that you're going to be spending to put infrastructure for a bridge, you might as well widen it to 3 lanes one time. Elevate it.
Yes.
So this is the problem. The problem, therefore, is the same problem we talked about, this interministerial planning. Yeah. So you have a proposal for government. We get about $100 million in money for flooding, right? And what happens? It goes to the water resources agencies, right? It goes to the Ministry of Works and then local government. And they will come together and hopefully, and they say, okay, this is how we're going to spend the money. But they don't bring the Ministry of Planning and Development in it. They don't bring the Ministry of Tourism in it. They don't say, well, I'm going to write, this is what I'm saying. The same thing. The reason what I'm giving you is exactly what we talked about initially, about having people come together, right? And understanding each person has a part in government. It's a whole of government program. Flooding is a whole of country program, a whole of government and a whole of country approach. There is the residence approach in terms of resiliency building and understanding of homes, but there is also the government now, and the government is not Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Local Government.
Planning,
it's
southern country.
That's correct. It's a whole of government approach.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. So that you have these little pockets now, and because the roads are now the lowest part, right, of the whole geography, right? The water now will come out from the drains that were not capable of dealing with the runoff from these developments. So the water runs onto the road. So the road becomes the rivers. And that is why you're having and you're seeing what's happening. Then there's the saturation problem. And once the first set of rain start in Woodland and all of these areas, what's going to happen? It's going to be easily saturated. It's going to go. But after 2 weeks now, apparently what is happening more now, because of the soil, because of the agriculture, because of a lot more surface water coming, because of the higher number of roofs that are built on properties, the excess water that will normally go into the soil where the house is and run into there and go into the water table, it now goes onto the street, and it goes there because it's a faster runoff. It doesn't have time to soak in. So this is the reason.
Would the new highway impacted that at all?
The new highway, clearly engineering, right, is not a problem, because they allowed water to go under the highway and they allowed water to go down to the sides and then find the bridges, right? So you see, engineering, people forget that we have planes that could go to Mars right now. We have vehicles that could go. The engineering is pretty good, I mean, you look at, as you say, you go to New Jersey and New York and you see there's causeways that go over the swamp. Engineering is pretty good. Look at what the Chinese are doing. I went to Jamaica recently, and these people, they build beautiful highways, the Dutch and the Chinese in Kingston, and the highway goes from Kingston to Montego Bay, right, and Ocho Rios, and it goes right through the mountain. I mean, look at us now. We have a little road that goes up on the north coast, and we could be building a highway that goes right through the mountain to Maracas. So we have the engineering. It's just that, unfortunately, same problem. Each people work in silos, and they don't come together and say, okay, listen, this is what we can do. This is 2025. We have AI, we have technology, we have engineering. We could go to the Dutch and they could build a road in the sea.
Oh, man, I tell you, I went to Holland and see them 20 feet. The sea level is 20 feet above me.
Yeah, you're widening a highway to go to Port of Spain when you could develop a causeway that runs over the entire Caroni Swamp and bisect the whole of the city and go down to the peninsula. So that you just have roads coming into Port of Spain from that road, because that's what you need to do. So you maintain the swamp ecology, and you have this lovely causeway going right up over the garbage heap that they have there into Port of Spain and down to the marina down by where they have movie town and whatnot. You know what I mean? And that is what you need. And you need to do that now. You can't say that it's not going to happen. In the next 10 years, there's going to be more development.
Man, that 3-hour traffic from Port to Port of Spain is a killer.
The 4 lanes are going to be filled up. I mean, it's come on. I mean, it's crazy.
And it used to happen from Chase Village. Now it's a whole 2 miles before Chase Village. From Karapichami, we're getting that traffic at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Correct. So, I mean, there are things that can be done. As I said, maybe those long-term projects with the causeways, yes, in the next 10, 20 years, you have to look at that. But in New York, you have in the road, there's a elevation, and the train runs between the two highways right down to the airport. You know what I mean? So you can park your car and take a train and go right down from New York straight to the airport in JFK without having to go through traffic. And if you think about the same thing done between the two highways in north and south, running from Port of Spain straight to San Fernando, right? With an underground tunnel that goes on the side with buses that take you to your home. These are things that could be done, but it's just that, I don't know. We can't seem to get it done. I don't know why.
So, Doc, put your recommendation, and I'm going to try to push it as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Because I feel that is absolutely necessary. I don't want us to have difficulty.
Sure.
Where we, so I want, if Roger is dealing with it, and Dr. Kajija should also, that we get these things. To be providing the technical support for them, right? Or to put in the resources in their lab.
Yeah.
And like I said, want to hit the ground running. Go ahead, Suman.
Things like the DNA legislation and all these things.
As I said,
but that is something to come behind. But what I want to get right now is the disaster planning strategy up and running right away, because we head in for June.
Yeah, June is when the first one starting.
Yep.
And again, woodland.
And the rain start already. So all the advice, all the technical advice, from Dr. Rambo, I want that reiterated and put in place as quick as possible.
Yeah, sure.
That'll be a great asset to get in. Flooding every year, man. It's a perennial problem. Perennial problem. Nobody has solved anything over the past 10 years.
I mean, it's sometimes part of the problem is also education. As I said, if you look at the resiliency of certain communities where floods come and floods go and you don't hear about it, right? Which is where we need to get to. But there is also the areas where actually flood impacts people, and it happens suddenly, just a heavy burst of rain, and all of a sudden you have people's home flooded, right? In areas that didn't even have flood before, right? So this is definitely where our proposals and it's not so much proposals, because those things have already been done. I mean, I worked at ODPM from 2011 to 2016 as the CEO there, and everything that we're going to put in this document has been there before. So the thing is, yes, we can definitely put a checklist of all the little things that we just talked about and we itemize, but we're going to have to tell our friends there who are there now that, hey, these things have already been done. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's happened. We did it already. It has been presented to the People's Partnership. It has been presented to the PNM. The thing is, we're going to present it back again to you. We need you to look at drainage. We need you to look at this, and we need to do that. Blah, blah, blah. But what you need to do, really, to make all of this worth it, is get your interministerial committee formed. These are the ministries that you have to go and get involved here. And these are the terms of reference of what they need to discuss on a monthly basis. You can do it virtually for that, for God's sakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is basically what you need to go back to the cabinet with, right? Take the policies that your subject matter experts are bringing back to the table, your engineers and your technicians and your technocrats that you've been hiring to do it for the past 20 years, and they're telling you exactly what I just told you. You don't want to be bored by Dr. Rammer, because all I'm telling you is exactly what your technocrats have been telling you. It's not science that is not there. The science is there already. What we're trying to tell you is what makes the difference for you as leaders, what makes it politically correct for you, which is very important to them, but also might not be as politically correct, but what you need to put in place so that you can stay in government for the next 10 years, right, or more. And I think this is basically, once you make it digestible for them in that regard, they will definitely see what we have to tell them. So we have to frame it properly. We have to kind of put it where they will read it through their lens. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't seem that we are telling them something that they don't want to hear because they're hearing it already. You know what I mean? So we have to be very, what we should say, tactical and strategic in how we are going to be approaching those recommendations. Yeah.
Doc, gentlemen, I intend to call it as it is.
Yeah.
I don't mix matters. I am not applying for.
I know how you stop. I know how you are. I know you will. But sometimes I can tell you, boy, you have been on the ground. I have been on the ground with some of these guys who are there now, and I can tell you, if sometimes you tell them what they don't want to hear, not what they need to hear, they just watch you and everything else, and they take a document and drop it in the table and they leave it alone. So
collecting dust.
See, the thing about it is, the things about the way I intend to go about it is going straight to the boss. Let the boss tell them.
I feel that is probably the better approach. And
that's the way. Like I say, I work for her.
Yeah.
I don't not a paid employee. I'm a volunteer, and I work in directly with her. I intend to communicate directly with her. I am not backing down. I went through the selection all these years with her, You know, I mean, there's an understanding with there's a best interest. We're looking after the best interest of all of us.
So we're gonna send it.
We,
We're gonna send it and let everybody look at it and put in your comments and whatever, and then you'll take it through. Okay.
Well, you guys are the technocrat in this.
And
I am not going to alter.
I will support it on this end because I'm very
yeah. But you're there. You're physically there. But what I'm saying to you, you are the technocrat in this. I'm not going to alter what you say. I'm just going to. I'm just going to make my.
It's very important because it's very important that everyone, you have to look at it, because sometimes even the technocrats would have all the science, but sometimes you would see it through a different lens, right? So it's always nice to look at things, and we can discuss it, and then you will take it through.
Yeah, we compare. Like I said, I'm very serious about this. You know me. I mean, you know me over the years.
I know you.
And so I intend to get this job.
You will.
I intend to support my prime minister. I intend to watch your back.
One of the things we don't want to happen here again is what happened in the last People's Partnership government, where after 5 years we were thrown out of the thing because of.
No. That's absolutely not happening with me.
Good.
But you see what happened?
Definitely.
That happened.
Yeah.
That happened because people was barricading her who didn't know nothing about me, didn't understand the relationship with me and her. And they saw their own self-interest, thinking that and they wasn't thinking about. Listen, as far as I'm concerned,
remember how I started, right? Remember how I started this conversation this evening? It's exactly that. Yeah.
So I feel that we fight too hard for government. There's been too much suffering, and I don't intend to see government go this easy. And I have no intention of tolerating anybody that would jeopardize this government. I don't care who they are. I'm going to call you out. You understand? I'm going to call you out. So this is about all of us.
Gary, take something into consideration. PNM has lost the election by 110,000 votes. 225 versus 335. 110,000 of their supporters did not go and vote. Come the next election, that same 110,000 go and vote. What happens to the UNC? You lost election again.
Right.
This time around, somebody has to make sure that you cement your
the performance
in the marginal constituencies for the very least. At the very least, make sure you hook those two and you get that two in Tobago.
Correct.
But I don't feel our performance was very much documented. You know what I mean? I think something failed with the communication there and what we do, because Dr. Gopi Singh had to go in the parliament and call out those 106 schools like the population didn't know. So what happened to the communication ministry under the PPG? Did we fall long on the job there? So what I'm saying to you is the country must be properly educated. What we doing, and the UNC USA channel is free and available to the UNC government. So beside the media, we're going to all I need some people on the ground to support, to collaborate with me with their device, and we're bringing it live and direct to the population.
Gary, one of the things that you're saying there is so important. It's like, for example, if you look at the messaging, I was the CEO of ODPM from 2011 to 2016, and we did a lot of work. Right, we actually worked with the military command in the embassy. We built the national, what we did. We built the National Emergency Operations Center in the east there. That headquarters that they have for the National Cement. And
I heard about it. I never seen anything about it.
The American government built that, right? And I was the CEO at the time, and we worked very closely to get that done. And that's a fantastic center. Right, it has been underutilized in the last 10 years. The current, even our prime minister when she speaks, you don't hear too much about the performance of ODPM when they went on the platform. It's as though disaster preparedness wasn't part of they didn't talk about how she went in the beginning and the last time with her boots on the first day, and she went into the communities and she gave business. She said she did imply that, but she didn't say anything about the ODPM. And the reason why I'm giving this as an example is that we were one of the high-performing agencies during the People's Partnership government, and this was not a something that was a whim and fancy. This was actually documented in real data, right? Where we did surveys and after the fact, right? And the people there also heard about ODPM. ODPM was something that they heard of compared to the previous time when ODPM, they didn't even know what ODPM did. Now, the reason I'm saying that is that this is why we lost the election last time, and it's exactly what you are talking about, right? Certain agencies did a lot of work, right? But the manner in which we actually sold that and we marketed that throughout the 5 years that we were there, it failed. And that is one of the reasons, all things being equal, that we didn't succeed in government, although we performed pretty well. So performance, I agree, it will help, but it's the whole thing, what Mr. Singh was talking about. We need to now use AI. We need to use all the social media tools that we have.
Digital marketing strategies.
Correct. So we need to continuously, just like how Trump, just like how the Chinese were doing Trump after he did all the tariffs. You see what Trump, they were eating like pigs in a room, and it kept flashing on TikTok. These are things that we have to start doing now. Even now, as we have started within the next 2 weeks, we need to begin that programming, so that we can actually now go into the other 5 years.
Well, I intend to make UNC USA part of the broadcasting network for that. And I was out there throughout the election. I intend to stay engaged. I mean, I don't have to tell you that, but so as soon as send me something tonight, I'm going to get to her, and she can respond to me when she's ready. I'm also going to get to Roger. And because, like I said, we all know what we're up against and what we're going to face. I don't want to see this government embarrassed in any sort of way, because they're waiting to say that we talk and we can't perform the job.
What you can do is if you can send me the emails, right, of the team members, right, here.
Yeah, I have to get it, but what I'm in the WhatsApp group there, you can place whatever information you for the disaster group, because I have eliminating people that who should not be there. So it will be our team.
I'll send a PDF on the WhatsApp group, okay?
Yeah, recommendation, your CV and everything. I could deal with that, and then I mean, I have some people email, but I have to get everybody email. But I mean, the main people. The main people email from the boss lady. You have it. I mean, you have a few others there.
I have an email, but I'll send it to you on the PDF, right? And we'll see. Yeah. All right.
Yes. So, gentlemen, Suma, do you have anything else to add on in?
No, I just agree with the doc 100%. I've been through this for the past 20 years or so. I left because of the same reasoning. That is little or no interministerial connectivity among. Anytime we're going to do any big project, there is no coordination, operating in silos, the issues of public servants and contract employees. And, if the minister or his technocrat doesn't see eye to eye, even though you are offering the best solution, it just throws it on the side.
Well, we know they intend to obstruct us, right? We know that they intend to cause us to.
But how are you going to get around this? You have to.
We have to discuss it.
No, let me tell you how they try to do it. You have to do a parallel system.
Yeah. We want to discuss this with the boss lady. So, like I said, we were dependent on her neighbor who is right there with her, and I will say something too. And I know she's serious about this, because I and her had several conversations, and she liked the idea and all these different things. And I'm going to make sure nobody gets in my way. I intend.
Flood mitigation should be, at this time, the number one priority.
Right. Yeah. But that's why I reached out to Dr. Ramrup. As soon as I see ministers saying there, I say we're ready to go.
Ready.
So cleaning the waterways from next week, going down the road.
Next week,
it will suffer again. It should have been done, but it wasn't done.
If we could get the last time we won government, it started the next day. She brought us some volunteers.
Next week is Monday. Next week.
You remember that, Dr. Rabup? She brought us some volunteers. We had contractors out there volunteering.
But now came in 86. That happened. The massive cleanup they had.
Yeah. Remember that? Nationwide cleanup.
Yeah.
I'll leave in some snacks. Oh, there for you.
Right. Well, okay.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. So, thank you, Dr. Rambo. We're going to stay in touch and stay engaged. All right. All right, then. Good night, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Take care, man. Good to see you again, Doc.
Okay, Mr. Singh. Thanks very much.
Take care, good.
Same here. Take care. Bye.
Right.